So we've arrived. What could have been seen as inevitability, but also the biggest hurdle that needed to be overcome or alleviated in order for any sort of cohesive, sustained defence of Ireland against what's happening. And what am I talking about? Obviously, the scenes in Belfast where you had Irish people standing with loyalists, Irish people waving their tricolour, loyalists with obviously the Union Jack and their other flags and their other symbols. Whatever way you cut it, a momentous moment in Irish history. Moment, because what follows next is very important. Obviously, you have centuries old feelings that will be coming up. I'll speak about mine for a second. So, I have no love for the Union Jack. I have no real graw for English accents, English people. I would say indifference probably wouldn't be the right word, but I try and make myself indifferent to it. I didn't grow up fighting English people. My family would have. Going back to generations, obviously, and who doesn't have that story? But I didn't grow up imbibing some sort of hostility or hatred towards them, but nonetheless it's there. Okay? And what I believe that to be is the bubbling of ancient racial memory. Right? And that will come to the fore, and that was always going to come to the fore, because the big hurdle that Irish people have is the northern issue, the northern end of this island, the issue there, in the context of what's going on. So yes, we have, we say, almost 1,000 years. You might even say 1,600 years. St. Patrick came from England after all. He was a patrician, which means Roman nobility, or a family that had pledged allegiance to the Roman system. Patrick comes from the word patrician, which means Roman nobility. So he came from England, English family over here. We celebrate that man. So anyone that's thrown around the word hypocrisy, there's one for you. We celebrate the original ethnic cleanser, or druid hunter, or bard killer. He went around, rounded up and killed the bards. What was the bard's job? The bard's job was to remember the genealogy of all Irish families. So that man severed our connection to our own nobility, our own aristocracy, and our own history. We celebrate him. I don't. You might. But collectively, and the diaspora as well, Irish people celebrate this man. You can say that's hypocrisy. You have 1172, the laudability there. You had an English Pope, Adrian IV, top of the Roman heap at the time. He gave permission to Henry II to take Ireland. Rome backed. You might say, but sure, that's because he was an English Pope. Fair enough. But the following Pope as well also reaffirmed the English right to take Ireland in the name of Rome. Okay? Do we harbour the same hostility towards the Catholic Church, towards Rome, that we do towards those in the north or towards England? No, we don't. No, we don't. If we're being super logical about it, of course we probably should. Or should we, whatever the case is. But if you're going to apply it to one situation, you must also apply it to another. Rome and England, Rome and London, hand in hand throughout the centuries in the destruction of Ireland. Right? You had English people and Irish people banning each other from entering the canonries, each respective canonries. Hang on now, I'll get it there for you. Yep. So you had Roman popes who made a papal bull affirming English people's rights to ban Irish people from their canonries and prohibiting Irish people from doing the same thing. Again, Rome are complicit in the destruction of Ireland. Right? You had Robert the Bruce's brother come to Ireland with 6,000 soldiers to help the Irish, from Scotland, to help the Irish fight off the English. What did Rome do? Excommunicated them. And due to the Irish allegiance to Rome, the support dwindled. Right? Again, Rome complicit with England. Do we harbour the same hostility towards the Catholic Church in Rome? No, we don't. We don't. Okay? So, if you're going to be talking to people about being hypocrites, don't you remember your history? Whose history? Whose history? Because we're only kind of given the one side, the one version of history. That it has always been Catholics against Protestants. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. English people and Rome were killing Irish people long, long before Protestantism was a thing. So, whose history are we talking about here? A fireside history, or what was actually the case? Okay, so we'll have a few points on Belfast. Why did this happen? Something that people probably never thought they would see or expected to see. Why was this happening? Was it out of an undying allegiance and love to each other? Of course not. It's not. You have people with their corresponding flags and symbols standing together and declaring that they are in a similar fight and that the enemy that they're seeing is the same, and they're both trying to overcome a similar obstacle. It doesn't mean we all shake hands and we go to each other's birthday parties and stuff, nor does it mean that we should or that we have to. It means that there's a shaky allegiance, maybe not even allegiance, but a common understanding that we're both facing the same issues, and would we best not be better off fighting the same enemy, maybe not together but at the same time, right, than resuscitating centuries of hatred and fear and loathing and hostility and anger and rage and all that stuff, and resuscitating that and going, can't do that because of this. Is that what's best at the moment? I don't believe it is. I really, really don't believe it is. And I think it's time for level heads, because I've been waiting for this. And always asking myself, what happens when this question emerges? And because what are we seeing here at the moment? We're seeing England, who are releasing, looks like thousands of people into the north of Ireland. And they're making their way down into the Republic of Ireland, right into Southern Ireland. So, what happens if we are absolutely not in any sort of friendly-ish or sharing any sort of common understanding in terms of the fight that's coming our way, or that's already here for those in the north and those in the south? It would mean that those in the north would have absolutely no issue in just sending all these people down to us, right? At least if we're both understanding that we're facing the same issues, there might be more of a cohesion between peoples that might allow for a better way of rebuffing what is coming here at the moment. Okay? Instead of drawing lines and swearing historical oaths when there's bigger fish to fry at the moment. Okay, so I suppose the ultimate question is this. Judging from where we are, we're facing the end of the line potentially for Irish people and for Irish history. It could be gone in a matter of 50 years, 30 years even, right? Do you want to give up a potential opportunity of making a grander stand just based on numbers alone, who are fighting the same enemy? They can hate us all they want, and you can hate them all you want. But being pragmatic about it, you stand a better chance of fighting people when you have more numbers who are aimed at the same enemy, right? It doesn't mean you have to wear their clothes, doesn't mean you have to start speaking in their accent, doesn't mean you have to swear any allegiance to any of their German monarchy, right? Doesn't mean any of that. It just means it's a numbers game. And if we're seeing anything across this country, is that we're incredibly lacking in numbers. So would you rather forego a greater potential of overcoming what we're up against for the sake of saying that you never made any sort of soft or partial allegiance with people who are the descendants of people who done terrible things to your ancestors? It might not even be ancestors, it might be family members at the moment or over the last few decades. So are you okay with that? Of saying no to a potential greater opportunity of overcoming it for the sake of keeping your conscience clear? You all right with that? Or I suppose a better way of phrasing that would be, if you felt that working with those in the north who are not your people, right? Not your people, fine. If you knew that an allegiance with them, however shaky it is, would lead to victory for Irish people, would you take that? Or would you still decline that? And if your answer is the latter, then I would suggest you keep stum, because breeding and reanimating that sort of millennia old hatred is something that no person can control once that's unleashed. And that's going to be bubbling. It is already bubbling under the surface. So if we have to start aiming we're in such a volatile position with this, because that's so easy to reignite and kick off. And if you know the sort of mechanisms that led to the troubles in the north in the first place, I'm not talking about Scotch plantations, I'm not talking about that, the Ulster plantations. I'm talking about British intelligence. Frank Kitson, get in, stoke up fires, stoke up animosity between people that aren't soldiers, between everyday people. That's what happened up there. Okay, you've seen that now again down here. It's not English or it's not loyalist people doing it here. It is the people that they're bringing in, foreigners, right? So incredibly volatile, but also very hopeful, because if you have a bloc, or the whole of Ireland largely, fighting against the same thing, you stand a better chance of both sides winning. You don't have to declare you're winning it together. You don't have to shake hands with any of these people. You don't have to be seen in any photos with flags. You don't have to be doing any of that stuff. You're just recognising a common enemy. Is that not the better way forward? And by all rights, every single miscarriage of justice, every single crime, every single taking of life, every single morally reprehensible decision that was made, any atrocity, any attempted genocide, any plantation, any stealing of any property, any of that stuff, any of the horrendous stuff that has happened over the centuries needs to be recognised, and it needs to be rinsed through the truth. Okay, and then it needs to be reintegrated by us. We need to understand our history. And the reason why I started out with the Catholic Church and the English thing is because if you're going to put on one hat, you better put on the other. So if you're going to degrade or speak ill of those who are for the moment, okay with standing together with the opposite side who are saying they're fighting a similar enemy, then you better hold the same sort of energy to all Catholics in Ireland. Because we went and worshipped at the Church of Rome, who butchered and burnt everything in this country to the point where we've forgotten we even had a religion prior to Rome. And that is disgusting. Because you can try and take a man's land, but if you take his spirit and his heart, is that not a worse thing to do? To turn him away from his own ancestors. To mess with him so much that he forgets that prior to you arriving, he had a different way of looking at things. A way of looking that was far more organic and natural to him and his people. And that was taken away by Rome. So if you want to point the finger at England and say, don't be entertained in that, you better point the same finger at Rome and keep that same energy. And also, if you're going to call people traitors for being seen or being around people who are of a different persuasion, and I understand the gravity of it, I understand that, but you better point the same finger at Catholics in Ireland. Otherwise, don't bother. You can't be economical with the truth of things, okay? We were caught in a pincer for millennia in this country between London and Rome. And is there a point in reigniting these fires and going, no, want absolutely nothing to do with you, even though it could be beneficial to us? It doesn't mean you have to forgive anything. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you're spitting on your ancestors or anything like that. It doesn't mean that. It means you're showing your ancestors that you have a vested interest in prolonging their race too. And you and their descendants are going to continue. So would you not take all the help you can get? And as soon as both paths no longer serve each other, absolutely get out of there. Be gone. You know? And if there's any sneakiness or anything like that, be gone. You're not swearing a loyalty to anything other than your own people. You're going to accept whatever help that can come, or we should accept any help that can come. Even if it's indirect support, we should take that. We should run with that. And once it stops serving our people's interests, be gone with it again. You know? Because there might be some good to come out of this. You know? And it'll be very, very interesting to see who's going to stoke this and who's going to angle this. And I would imagine Drew Harris is already at this and all over this, because he's an ideological descendant of Frank Kitson, the original engineer of the Troubles in the North. Okay? Nothing to do with Catholicism and Protestantism, largely. It was to do with separating out, historically as well, separating out the Scottish people and the Irish people, because the Scottish people are Irish descendants, and England did not want the clean support between the north of Ireland from the northern part of Ireland and Scotland, because the Irish people invaded England before. We went to try and drive Rome out of England before Rome took over England, right? England are the original people who were subjugated long before us. And then England was used as a base by the same entity, okay? The same entity also that caught us in this 20th century and nearly took everything from us. Our children, who we're still suffering the long-term effects of that. Children, you know what happened. You know what happened in the 20th century. And what does this monster, this Roman monster, do? Vatican Second Council. It decides to take on more of a socially liberal or Marxist persuasion. So it morphs from a totally religious looking thing into a left-leaning political entity again. So it never left. It hasn't lessened its voice grip. People think that the dominance of the Catholic Church in Ireland just went away. No, it didn't. It transformed into something more pragmatic. Their allegiance wasn't just to this system. It was to whatever allows them to maintain power in this country and whatever other country. So they move along with the times. We best be moving along with the times as well and use whatever we can to benefit us in any way, because we are up against it. And any one extra person or two extra people or 1,000 extra people that want to fight a similar fight to us, we'd be foolish not to take it.